Hello everybody, what's going on? This is Andrew, and today we are going to play Magic. We're going to get to this deck that's on screen right now, this Esper control deck in Standard. We're going to play it, but before we do, I want to talk about how we got to this deck. I want to take a little bit of a step back and talk a little bit about my experience selecting decks for upcoming tournaments back when I was playing more tournaments, and kind of do a little bit of a thought experiment as to how I would end up selecting a deck for a fake tournament that's coming up next weekend. I'm recording this video a little bit in advance. It's December 2nd right now. I hope that some of the metrics I'm talking about aren't too out of date by the time this video goes up, but I wanted to talk a little bit about deck selection and a little bit about my history picking decks for events. So 3-4 years ago, leading up to right in March 2020, I would drive all around my area and play in PPTQs at local game stores. And for those of you who might not know what those are, those were local preliminary Pro Tour qualifiers that the winner would qualify for a regional qualifier. And then at the regional qualifier, a certain number of players would qualify for the Pro Tour. I would also fly to a handful of Grand Prix every year, and I had a couple, top 20-ish Grand Prix finishes. I won 2 PPTQs. The RPTQs didn't go particularly well for me, the regional events. But I had a little bit of success. I won't say that I was the best player in my region or anything like that, but I was, I could have some success at some of these events. And my favorite part about the way that the PPTQ system worked was, especially in Standard, you were having to adapt your deck selection every week for what the meta was evolving to as the Standard format evolved. Sometimes there would be 3 or 4 weeks in a row where there were events within a half-hour drive of me, and I would sometimes take a completely different deck 4 weeks in a row, and sometimes I'd take the same deck 4 weeks in a row because I really liked it or I thought it was in a good spot or whatever. And that whole thought process, that mentality, I was missing it a little bit today. So I thought I would talk a little bit about how I used to pick decks, kind of the ways that people in general pick decks, and how I would select a deck. And this is where I would start. The spoiler alert, Esper Control is where I'd want to start if there was a tournament coming up this weekend. But how I arrived here. So whenever I was preparing for a small local tournament, I'd have to keep a couple things in mind. One, what were the results of some of the bigger tournaments that happened over the weekend? What happened on Magic Online, what happened at a Grand Prix, or what happened at an SCG event, right? All of those events were going on all the time, so I'd have to pay attention and see what was going on. We don't have as many of those big events happening all the time right now, but we do have kind of sort of a Pro Tour going on online, the championship on Arena or whatever it's called. And this is the archetype breakdown. We didn't get deck lists yet, but we at least know what people are playing, right? And this is what it is. People are playing mostly Is It Epiphany with mono white aggro in second place, and then the rest of the decks under 10% of the field. I guess mono green is right at 10%, but everything else just little bits and pieces here and there. So as far as I can tell, most players want to either be playing Is It Epiphany or mono white aggro. And Is It Epiphany or blue-red control decks that use either Epiphany or Hullbreaker Horror as their win conditions actually account for close to 45% of the field once you add everything up. Dragons decks that are in blue-red account for another 5%. So about half the field is playing blue-red decks with some sort of combination of the blue and red good spells. And then mono white's 20%, mono green's 10%, and so on. So what does this mean to me? Well, I interpret this as a lot of people liking mono white as the best proactive deck to be playing in the format. Mono white tends to have a favorable matchup against mono green, and tends to have a favorable matchup against the control decks. The Epiphany decks are closer to 50-50, and I think if an Epiphany deck can tune its game plan correctly, I imagine they can build their decks to have a good matchup against mono white, potentially at the expense of some other matchup. So that's how the top 3 decks get to where they are, right? Epiphany, very powerful, obviously one of the most powerful things you can be doing in Standard, but it and the blue-red control deck can both falter a little bit against mono white. Mono green is often fast enough to just beat down the Epiphany deck. They don't have to rely on their disruption quite as much. But mono green is not as good against mono white. And both mono white and mono green are very bad against the Orzhov control deck, which you see right underneath them. So if I'm looking at this, excuse me, if I'm looking at this sort of metagame breakdown, and I'm thinking about what players at the local level are going to play, and what I should do to prepare for that, I think that local players are slightly more likely, on average, to bring an aggressive deck versus a control deck. Control decks and combo decks often take a lot of time to figure out how to play optimally, and so you can expect somebody who wants to show up for the local, the local event at their local game store, are much more likely to pick up an aggressive deck. It's a little easier to pick up. Sometimes aggro decks work together a little, or not together, they work similarly to other aggro decks you've played before, more so than some control decks do. So have to take that into account. At a local shop, you'd probably see a little bit more mono white and mono green than what this breakdown's looking like. Number 2, you'd still have to prepare for a bunch of Epiphany, because a lot of the other players like me who are traveling from wherever they are to this event are looking to win. And if they've decided that Epiphany is the strongest thing to be doing in the format, well then I need to prepare for them. So to me, I've got 3 options. I can play whatever I and my testing team, my friends, whatever we decide is the strongest deck. I can play that deck. And I'm not sure, I haven't been testing or playing with my group as much as we used to, so I'm not sure where the rest of them are at with Standard. A lot of them are focusing on Modern or other things right now, but I'm not sure if we would come down and say Epiphany's the best, Mono White's the best, whatever. But I could play that deck. And for the sake of argument here, let's say it's Epiphany. I could play Epiphany. I could play the thing that beats Epiphany. Mono White tends to be really good against Epiphany, and I could just practice that matchup over and over again until I know exactly what's going on there. I could grab a pet deck, one of these decks in the other category. I could play my pet deck and just gain a little bit of advantage knowing that nobody knows what I'm doing, or they don't really know what I'm doing. I could, get my opponent with some weird sideboard plan or weird main deck cards that they wouldn't expect. And that works sometimes. Sometimes the element of surprise is worth more, especially at smaller local events. And 4, I could try to guess exactly what the metagame would look like and build a deck for any given weekend. And that 4th option is what I'm going to talk about right now. I don't want to just play Epiphany into a room of other people who are better than me at Epiphany, or people who have practiced the Epiphany matchup so often that they know exactly what to do and what to expect and how to beat me. I have never liked being the boogeyman in the room. I don't think I do it particularly well. I'd rather find a competitive tier 2 strategy that can surprise some people and leave them surprised at the outcome. So, all that being said, now I need to figure out, what am I playing? What deck can beat Epiphany, beat Mono White, beat Mono Green, and beat Black White Control? Well, if you think about a normal Magic metagame, there's usually some aggro decks, some mid-range decks, some control decks, and sometimes a combo deck. This metagame's weird because the control deck is a combo deck, right? Is it Epiphany? is a combo deck. It uses the Galvanic Iteration and Alrund's Epiphany to take infinite turns. Not actually, but close enough that they win the game off of that. And there's not really a mid-range deck. The Orzhov control deck, you could argue it's not really control because it's got a lot of creatures in it. It's not like a blue-white draw-go control deck. But there's not really a mid-range deck because the control decks are so punishing. You can't play a real derpy mid-range deck because the Epiphany deck's going to combo you out of the game. So what do we do from here? How do we beat the control deck that's also a combo deck and beat the aggro deck? Well, I have no idea where I'd start. I would probably start with some of the green-red Werewolves decks that I played a bit of before Crimson Vow came out. And honestly, I might take those to an event, especially if I didn't have a lot of time to prepare. Those decks are my cup of tea. I love playing decks like that, and I could see them really working out for a player like me who likes to just play aggressive cards and make my opponent answer what I have. But that's not always where I want to be. That, like, those decks don't match up particularly well against a lot of what Epiphany's got going on, and you have to have the perfect spell on time or you're just dead. So I want to go a little bit deeper than that. I want to actually try to analyze this metagame and figure out what I want to be doing. So let's look at some of the online events. There was a standard challenge on November 27th, so 5 days ago, and there was one on the 28th, so the following day. And the winner of the challenge on the 28th was this Wurzo Busix player who played a blue-black control deck, splashing white, so it's an Esper control deck, that it just kind of, it is a control deck, but it's more like an Esper mid-rangey kind of deck. It's got 10 creatures, 4 Graveyard Trespasser, 2 Henrika, 2 Imrith, 2 Edgar, 3 Sorin, 3 Path of Peril, and then a bunch of Disruption. And then the day before that, it was the next day. Phil Hellmuth, which is a pretty well-known Magic Online player, just missed out on top 8ing with a very, very similar deck. So what is this deck doing? Why is a deck like this a good choice? Well, it can generate tokens in Sorin and Edgar, and it has a relatively decent sized creature here, Graveyard Trespasser, that can do okay against the aggro decks. We've also got 3 Path of Perils and 3 Meathook Massacres, which are very good against mono white. And Infernal Grasp is quite good against mono green. So we've got the tools in the main deck to deal with the creature decks. Sure, that seems good, right? The blue-black-white control deck can deal with the creatures. We see that time and time again. How does this deal with the combo deck? Well, Wash Away is one of the big ways that this deck can gain advantages there, right? It's a counterspell that is a very, very cheap counterspell, countering Alrund's Epiphany. It's also not useless countering other spells. We've also got a Soul Shatter in here, which is good at killing Hullbreaker Horror. We've got a main deck Test of Talents, which is adorable, and I like it a lot. Siphon Insight and Memory Deluge help us keep up in card quality and quantity against the control deck. And we have a clock. We can kill them pretty fast. Between Imrith, Henrika, Edgar, and Sorin, we put a lot of pressure on the battlefield and make them answer it. Meat hooks aren't dead in this matchup either. We can just play this for 2 mana, and whenever they kill one of our things, they take damage. So they don't have an endless amount of time to kill us. And then in the sideboard, we get Go Blanks, we get Curse of Silence, we get Malevolent Hermits. You know, we get a decent amount of stuff here for the Epiphany decks. So now I'm kind of convinced, right, that like this deck, or this archetype at least, has what it takes. This seems really good. On paper, seems great. Okay, so I've now decided I want to play a deck like this. I want to play this blue-black with a white splash control deck. So what do I do now? Well, now I need to play this deck. So, we're back here in Arena. I've sort of combined the two versions of the deck that we just were looking at online. I have a single Syncopate and a single Drawer Disruption. I have 2 Edgar, 2 Henrika, 3 Sorin, 2 Imrith. I've got Malevolent Hermits, Duresses, Soul Shatters, Vanishing Verses in the sideboard. I'm ready to go. I'm gonna test exactly this deck and see how I like it. Because if I can't play this deck, if I'm not getting the hang of it, I'm not gonna take this deck to the event this weekend. It's not worth it. I'm gonna play something that I'm more comfortable with. Or I'm gonna play this deck and I'm gonna figure out that I like a lot of what it has going on, but I wanna change a thing or two. So let's hop into a match and we'll talk through how the deck is playing and how we think and, you know, problems that we might come up with as we play the deck. So let's hop into a match. All right, time to see if we even like playing this Esper deck. We won the die roll. We get to go first. And yeah, this hand looks fine. We can't play Edgar on curve, but we can go Graveyard Trespasser into Sorin to put some pressure on. No control elements in this opening hand. We'll see how much of a problem that is. I'm going to go Shipwreck Marsh on 1, then Island Island. And then this will be a Swamp. Alright, cool. There's Memory Deluge. We were missing something like this, so I'm happy to find this. Overgrown Farmland plus Plains and Prosperous Innkeeper. I wonder if they're playing a version of the green-white deck that I played the other day. Or... they're getting priority here. Do they have a Esper Sentinel that they should play? Path of Peril. Cool. Still just going to run out the Graveyard Trespasser. Can't eat anything right now, but it's still a 3/3 that puts some pressure on our opponent here. Hopefully we get a little bit more info about what they're doing. Oh, there's a Lifegain deck. Path of Peril looks great here. Path of Peril, kill everything, and then attack and eat the Lunarch Veteran. It's a clean little 4-for-1, basically. Okay. That was neat. Green-white Lifegain. Another meat hook seems good. Maybe Vanishing Verses? I don't know what their big payoff is, though. They probably have the white 2/2. I don't remember what it's called. So maybe we want the Vanishing Verses here, too. And the Washaways and the Syncopate go away. We just play to the board a little bit. Yeah, that seems good. Soul Shatter could get in here if I can find things to cut. Yeah, I'm not sure what to cut for it, so I'm just going to leave the deck as is. It might be that, like, cutting a Memory Deluge and putting in another removal spell is what we want to do, but we do want to be able to turn the corner. 7 sweepers and a bunch of spot removal should be plenty for us to stay ahead of this matchup. They might have some sort of catch-up mechanic that I don't know about, but they conceded after we 3-for-1 them on the board, so... Oh, excuse me. What do we think about this hand? I think this hand is good. I think I'm going to keep. I think the Drawer Disruption is a land, not a spell here. I think we played this on 1, this on black on 2, and then we hope that they have a land we can Field of Ruin on 3 to go get second black. I'm pretty sure that's the play. If we draw a land for the turn, for our first turn, and it's a, I guess any land? Yeah, any land here changes how I do things. Okay. So now I can go this on black, or this on blue, this on black. Yeah. And I can use Hold Up Drawer Disruption and Infernal Grasp on turn 2. Need to make sure to put this on the black side. But if I do that, we're good to go. Whenever you gain life, put a +1/+1 counter on it. Okay. This thing gets big pretty quick, but we do have the Path of Peril. Yep, hit for 1. Ooh, nice Vanishing Verse. Okay. I'm just gonna play this on black and pass. So we'll counter their 3-drop if they play a 3-drop, but they have the Voice of the Blessed. So that's gonna survive. They gain life. Both things power up. Do I need to Infernal Grasp to keep my life total high? I think so. They have a Snakeskin Veil. Okay. Field of Ruin go. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 if they can play a creature. Red land. Okay. Now. Field of Ruin, the Lair of the Hydra, get a swamp. We have backup Field of Ruin to get white later. I think I'm gonna play the Droid Disruption tapped here. We're gonna kill all their things here. Play a tap land, and then next turn. Ooh, they had a Valorous Stance? Huh. So we're dead. Okay. So we saw Valorous Stance and Snakeskin Veil there. Makes Soul Shatter a little more appealing. So I am going to do what I talked about. Cut a Memory Deluge and just play another Soul Shatter. Just need to be able to make sure we have the right interaction when we need it. Okay. They came to play. We'll play first again. Yeah, this looks fun. Go this on 1. Hall of Storm Giants on 2. Siphon Insight. And then just get ready for a Meat Hook Massacre. We have our white mana. We don't have to fight over what land gets played. I wonder what red they have in their deck. Do they have Fling? Or the... You know what I mean. Cool. Pass here. If they just go one drop, I'm not grasping anything. I'm just going to meat hook for 3 or for 1. If they play, yeah, so I'll just meat hook next turn. No, play a Traveling Minister. Do it. I dare you. Don't know what I'm looking for with Siphon Insight. I guess I'd take like a Valorous Stance or something. Voice of the Blessed or Amarius Call. You know what? I can actually take Voice of the Blessed because Meat Hook. It works well with Meat Hook. That's kind of cute. Cool. There's a Graveyard Trespasser. I still think I just Meat Hook for 1 while the getting's good. It's going to slow them down quite a bit. And if they don't recast this, Graveyard Trespasser gets to eat it next turn. Okay, played one from hand, playing the one from the graveyard, sure. So now what's the play? I could go Voice plus hold up Infernal Grasp. I can just Deluge this turn. I think I'll just pass and hold up Deluge or Infernal Grasp something if I really, really need to. Oh, they have Showdown of the Scalds. Sure, that makes sense. Seems pretty good for them. They'll hit a land here and a couple of Voices of the Blessed. Okay, we're digging for our Paths of Peril. Sure. Yep. Memory Deluge. We're gonna find Grasp and do I take the land here? Or the Graveyard Trespasser? Maybe I'll just take the Drawer Disruption. Okay, there's Path of Peril. Do I just sweep the board this turn? Yes, I think so. Too bad I can't Path of Peril and have the voice out. This goes on black. I could just wait to see what happens. Yeah, I'll lead on Graveyard Trespasser here. Get the Prosperous Innkeeper. Pass the turn. Yeah, Showdown might be good for them here. Yep, voice happens. Mm-hmm. Yep. Attacks is fine. I'll take 3 here. Go ahead and grasp the Voice of the Blessed. Okay, they do have the Valorous stance, but they tapped off green, which to me means that this should work. Cool. Yep, they're gonna gain some life here. That's fine. I'm gonna gain some life. I'm gonna play the Voice of the Blessed, play the Disruption, attack, eat the Luminarch Veteran, gain life. This grows. And now we're in a great spot. Siphon Insight can help us find the next land so we can cast the Memory Deluge. Oh, they didn't even have anything. Cool. Sweet. Yep, rank up. Yeah. That was awesome. I really liked how that played. That felt really good to me. Okay, so we played a game with the deck, and the deck felt great. It beat kind of a cheeky deck, but if you imagine other small aggro decks kind of doing similar things to what this deck was doing, it felt like we had the tools to keep up and beat them and turn the corner. So the next question I'd ask myself is, okay, are there any things I think I should change before just running the deck back and trying it again? Sometimes you'll play a couple matches in a row, or you'll immediately find like, this card, I didn't like this card, let's find a replacement for it. But I didn't run into that in that match. I was pretty happy with how the deck looked and how the deck ran, so I'm just going to run a couple more matches with this deck back tomorrow, and then we'll talk about if there's any final changes we'd like to make before taking it to this pretend event that we're going to over the weekend. So that's going to be it for me for today. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the little the breakdown of deck selection for events at the beginning. Leave some comments. Let me know what you thought of it. But I hope you have a great day. Thank you again for watching this video, and I will catch you next time.